Good morning, all of you. In today's session, we are going to start with CSIR-NET GRF Chemical Science, December 2016, Part B, right? In the previous session, we completed 2016 question paper, 2017, 18, 19, 20 question papers of 2 sessions have been completed. They are available on World of Competitive Chemistry. Now we entered into this, the second part of the CSIR-NET GRF Chemical Science, December 2016. Part B questions are going to be discussed in this session. So let us enter into our actual concept. Question number 21. The HOMO highest occupied molecular orbital to LUMO lowest unoccupied molecular orbital electronic transition responsible for the observed color of halogen is. Here, halogens were taken fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine. HOMO to LUMO transition, which orbital participation is there, that to be depicted. Here, in case of halogens, let us consider fluorine, for example. Pi star to N star kind of transition is possible from HOMO to LUMO. Let us discuss in accordance with molecular orbital theory. The simplest example, fluorine molecule I am considering. Here, 2s and 2p orbital will be filled in such a manner. When 2s orbitals were taken, 2 electrons will be contributed in bonding and remaining 2 electrons entered into antibonding orbital. Here, Gu terms are represented. G denotes what? Gerade orbital. Sigma bonding is denoted with gerade. Sigma antibonding denoted with ungerade orbital. Pi bonding is called ungerade. Pi antibonding is called a gerade orbital. So that's the reason why here 2s orbital of fluorine. What is the electronic configuration of fluorine? 1s2, 2s2, 2p5, right? So here 2s orbital having 2 electrons, 2p having 5 electrons in its valency shell. Then 2s orbital filling will be in such a manner. Sigma gerade will be 2 electrons. Sigma ungerade antibonding will be 2 electrons. And each fluorine p orbital is associated with 5 electrons. So the 10 electrons will be filled in this molecular orbital diagram. Sigma gerade will be filled with 2 electrons. Pi ungerade will be filled with 4 electrons. Pi star gerade will be filled with 2 plus 2, 4 electrons. Here, up to pi star gerade, we filled electrons, and sigma star ungerade becomes vacant. It is empty orbital, right? So, HOMO is nothing but highest occupied molecular orbital is denoted with HOMO. Here, 2 plus 2, 4 electrons are there. This is the highest energy level where electrons are available. This is said to be a HOMO orbital. When we go with sigma star ungerade, here, this is vacant orbital, right? Lowest unoccupied molecular orbital is designated with this sigma star ungerade. Whenever energy is supplied, this electron from this HOMO to LUMO transition is possible. Nothing but pi star gerade to sigma star ungerade kind of transition is possible. So that is only the question. HOMO to LUMO transition, which orbitals? Pi star to sigma star transition is possible in halogens. For question number 21, option number 1 is the correct answer. Let us move on to question number 22. In the hydrolysis of trans cobalt En taken by Cl positive, if the leaving group is chloride, the formation of cis product is least when A is. Here is the complex of cobalt, and En stands for bidentate ethylene diamine ligand, chloro being it is a better leaving group, and A will be the ligand which will decide the least cis product. That means most trans product will be predominated. What will be that ligand we have to predict? Here the options nitro, thiocyanato, chloride, hydroxy ligands are provided. Based on this data, we have to go for trans affecting ligands. So this is the complex of cobalt where trans ethylene diamine was given. Being ethylene diamine is a bidentate, there is a formation of chelate ring and both are trans with respect to each other. Chloro and the ligand which affecting this trans effect will be in the axial position, and it is the monopositive complex, right? So in order to remove the chloro and introduce any other functional group trans with respect to existing ligand, trans effect of ligand plays the vital role here. So trans effect is nothing but the ligand which mainly prefer this trans orientation. So trans orientation of incoming nucleophile is called a trans effect. Trans effect order will be nitro followed by thiocyanato followed by chloro followed by hydroxy. Highest trans effect is given for nitro. So it will give the maximum amount of trans product and the least amount of cis product. That is only they are asking least amount of cis product is given for nitro because of high trans effect. For question number 22, option number 1 is the correct answer. Let us move on to question number 23. The expected number of F19 NMR spectral lines, including satellites, for xenon pentafluoride anion is abundance of xenon 129I is equal to half is 26%. Here we have to predict how many signals are possible in F19 NMR spectra of xenon pentafluoride anion. Right? Abundance of xenon 129 is also provided to us. Based on this, we have to depict how many lines are possible. For that purpose, here we have the complex xenon pentafluoride minus anion, whose structure will be pentagonal planar. Here, for any compound, one of the isotope is NMR active, another isotope is NMR inactive, then there is a possibility of spin dilution. In case of spin dilution, there is a possibility of satellite peaks. Satellite peaks are oriented are given for that kind of complex. In case of this xenon 129 abundance will be 26, whose angular momentum value is half. That's the reason why it will become NMR active. And xenon 128 being whose angular momentum is 0 and 74% abundance is there, this can be regarded as a NMR inactive. Hence, here there is a possibility of satellite peaks. How many peaks are possible? Let us see. For that purpose, we are going to apply the formula 2Ni plus 1. So when we apply for 2Ni plus 1 for xenon 128, so for xenon 128, how many xenon atoms are there? Only one xenon. 2 into 1. N denotes what? Number of xenon atoms of 128. Only one is there. And whose angular momentum value will be 0, right? So into 0 and 2Ni plus 1. So plus 1 will be taken. So this 0 multiplied with any integer, that entire value becomes 0. A plus 1 will be there. So here for xenon 128, number of possible peaks are only one. Single peak is possible. When we consider for xenon 129, so this is a NMR active one, where angular momentum value is half, right? So here 2Ni plus 1 formula can be employed here also. 2 into N. How many xenons of 129? Only 1. So 2 into 1 into 1 by 2 plus 1. 2 get cancelled, so that 1 plus 1, it will be 2 peaks. One single peak for NMR inactive and 2 peaks for NMR active xenon atoms are possible, so that there is a possibility of satellite peaks. Spin dilution is possible. 1 base peak and 2 satellite peaks are originated, so that total possible peaks are 3. For this xenon pentafluoride anion, the possible number of peaks are 3. For question number 23, option number 3 is the correct answer. Let us move on to question number 24. The expected hydrogen-hydrogen-hydrogen bond angle in H3 positive is trihydrogen cation. Trihydrogen cation is also known as protonated hydrogen molecule. When H2 is added with H place, there is a possibility of H3 positive, that is represented in this triangular shape. Being it is triangle, whose bond angle can be designated as 60 degrees and bond length will be 0.9 angstroms. Right? So all the angles are equal, all the lengths of bonds also equal. That's why 60 degrees angle and 0.9 angstroms of bond length will be assigned for this molecule. So for question number 24, option number 3 is the correct answer. Let us move on to question number 25. The number of bridging ligands and metal-metal bonds present in the complex ruthenium 2 neta 5 Cp2 CO taken twice PH2P CH2 PH2 obeys 18 electron rule respectively. Here ruthenium complex was given. In this ruthenium, how many metals are there? 2 ruthenium. Neta 5 Cp2. Neta 5 denotes what? 5 electrons contributed by Cp. Such ligands are 2 are there in this. And 2 carbonyl groups are there. PH2, P, CH2, PPH2 will be there. It is the kind of system where PPH2 will give 1 electron pair. Here also 1 electron pair. Total 4 electrons will be contributed by this one. It is the bidentate ligand. And this complex is obeying 18 electron rule. Now we have to depict how many bridging ligands are there, how many metal-metal bonds are possible for this complex. In order to get that, first of all, we have to calculate total valency electron count. So here ruthenium being it is the member of iron family. It is a member of iron family. Here 8 electrons will be there in its valency shell and 2 ruthenium atoms are there. 8 into 2 it will be neta 5 Cp2. That means each Cp is contributing 5 electrons. Such a Cp atoms are 2. So that 5 into 2 will be there. Then next is about 2 into 2. So why it is 2 into 2? Carbonyl group. How many carbonyl groups are there? 2 carbonyls and each carbonyl contributing 2 electrons. So the 2 into 2 will be taken, and PPH2 CH2 PPH2 ligand is contributing 4 electrons, being it is the bidentate ligand. So here this is about the possible total valency electron. Then we got 34 electrons present in the given complex. In order to depict the number of metal-metal bonds, there is a formula: 18 into n minus total valency electron count by 2. 18 into n minus total valency electron count by 2. N denotes number of metal atoms present in the complex. When we take this complex 18 into n, n here ruthenium 2 atoms are there, 18 into 2 minus total valency electrons, how many? 34 are there by 2 it will be. So 18 into 2 it will be 36 minus 34 by 2. 36 minus 34, 2 by 2, but 1. Number of metal-metal bonds in this ruthenium complex will be 1. So how many bridging ligands? Bridging ligands are nothing but which are used to combine both the metals. In case of this ruthenium complex, we have 2 CP ligands which are inclined in the trans manner. And there is a direct one metal-metal ruthenium bond is there. 2 bridging carbonyl groups are there, and 1 more PPH2 CH2 PPH2 ligand also forming a bridging. So here 1, 2, 3 are bridging ligands are there, and 1 metal-metal bond is present within the complex. 3 bridging ligands and 1 metal-metal bond. For question number 25, option number 3 is the correct answer. And the next question, the oxidation state of gold in the following complex. Here is the inorganic question part. Aurum, single bond Rm, Cl, Cl, and CH2P, Me2, CH2, CH2P, Me2, CH2. So this is the kind of complex. So where gold exists in the form of +2, and being it is diamagnetic in this complex. So this is the complex where diamagnetic nature, because all the electrons are participated in the bond formation, so that here Rm existing in +2 oxidation state. For question number 26, option number 3 is the correct answer. And the next question, number 27, the rate of alkene coordination to platinum Cl4 minus 2 is highest for. So platinum Cl4 minus 2 is given. This is a platinum complex. Whenever it treated with alkene, there is a formation of Jase salt is possible, right? So in this case, in this regard, which ligand is reacted in the maximum extent, what will be the rate of the reaction, right? So in order to predict the rate of reaction, the ligand with high pi electron density, then there is a greater extent of bonding between the metal and olefinic double bond. Where pi electron density is maximum, norbornene having higher pi electron density, subsequently cyclohexene, and the next is about the cyclobutene, 1-butene, and the least is for ethylene. In the same manner, rate of the reaction is also present. Norbornene will give higher rate of reaction, followed by cyclohexene, and ethylene will be least. For question number 27, option number 1 is the correct answer. Let us move on to question number 28. The Knapf-Laxetic parameter beta is highest for. Knapf-Laxetic parameter is the magnitude of nature which used to delocalize the metal electron density. So the ligand which works like a electron delocalizing agent on the metal atom, so that here Knapf-Laxetic parameter value will be higher. Higher the electronegativity, so such an extent of nature will be higher, so that fluoride having higher nature, followed by water, ammonia, ethylene diamine, NCS minus, chloro, cyano, and the least is given for bromo. This is the beta value. Knapf-Laxetic parameter value purely depends upon the electronegativity nature of the ligand. Fluoro followed by oxygen, right? And the next will be given for nitrogen. All these belongs to nitrogen containing ligands, and followed by chloro, and the least is given for bromo. In the simple manner, we can remember this entire series, right? So Knapf-Laxetic parameter beta is highest for what? Fluoroligand. So for question number 28, option number 4 is the correct answer. And the next is about, it is also part of inorganic chemistry, coordination complexes. So the 2Eg getting from 4A2G transition is the electronic spectrum of chromium NH3 taken 6+3 occurs nearly. This is a kind of emission spectra. Because ground level 4A2G turned, excited level 4A2G turned into 2Eg. So that's the reason why arrow is inverted. Hence we can say it is the emission spectra. And this kind of spectra appears in which region, right? So in this case of chromium, the possible transitions are 3. So one is 4A2G to 2Eg, 4A2G to 4F2G, 4A2G2, 4T1G. These are the three probable transitions for given compound, that is chromium NH3 taken 6+3. Among all, 4A2G to 2EG kind of transition is available at 600 nanometers. So that's the reason why for question number 29, option number 1 is the correct answer. And the question number 30, in the catalytic hydration of carbon dioxide by carbonic anhydrase, carbon dioxide first interact with, okay, here catalytic hydration of carbon dioxide is going to be performed in carbonic anhydrase catalyst. This is the enzyme, which is a zinc bonded enzyme. Upon treating with carbon dioxide, it will be converted into carbonic acid. That is the natural bio process where carbon dioxide first bonded to which molecule we have to predict. So here is the enzyme, that is carbonic anhydrase. Zinc bonded with 3 histidine molecules with the nitrogen atoms, and 1 aqua water will be combined with this. When nitrogen atoms, more number of nitrogen atoms present on the zinc, what they will do? Because of -I affecting nature, electron density on the zinc will be totally destroyed. So it will become electron deficient, so that more acidic nature will be there. So here bond polarization of water will be very higher in case of this carbonic anhydrase enzyme. Subsequently, it releases H plus ion from oxygen and generates hydroxide. OH minus will be formed readily. Whenever OH minus formed, then it combines with carbon dioxide. This is the important step what we are expecting. Carbon dioxide first interacts with OH minus. Carbon dioxide first interacts with OH minus, then it will bind with zinc, right? So in this way, OH minus now bound to this carbon dioxide, so that there is a formation of carboxylate, and the carboxylate further involved in cyclization reaction with zinc. So first carbon dioxide reacts with OH minus, now it bounded to zinc. This is the thing we have to denote, right? So later there is a formation of cyclic ring in between this carbon dioxide and zinc, like this. Later this bicarbonate moiety will be eliminated, and carbonic anhydrase enzyme will be retained. This bicarbonate further protonated and carbonic acid will be generated. This is a biological process which occurred within the human, any living organisms. So during this carbonic anhydrase transformation, carbon dioxide first bonded to OH and followed by it bonded to zinc. That's the reason why for question number 30, option number 1 is the correct answer. Let us move on to question number 31. For the reaction, HX plus water gives rise to H3O plus and X minus. Higher value of X minus concentration when X minus is. So this is the kind of chemical reaction. In this reaction, where the concentration of halide ion is higher, we have to predict. First option, it is given with a hypohalide, OCl minus, F minus fluoride, Cl minus chloride, nitro, NO2 minus is given. So which kind of X group will have higher rate of X minus concentration? For that purpose, we will substitute all the given options in the equation, so that we will get the correct answer. First, we will go with HOCl, called hypochlorous acid. Upon treating with water, what happens? There is a formation of hydronium ion, and the chloride will be generated, and nascent oxygen will be released. This is a probable reaction, but the system is not exactly present in this manner. Nascent oxygen is not mentioned. That's why there is no probability of OCl minus ligand. That will not be present as X. So that we will go with any other option, that is option number 2, fluoride. In case of fluoride, it can be taken as HF. Upon treating with water, there is a formation of oxonium ion, and F minus will be possible. But everybody familiar that HF is the weak acid. If weak acid was taken, what about extent of ionization? It will be least. A partial ionization is possible. If it is partially ionized, what about the concentration of F minus? It will be very low. So here, higher concentration of X minus is not possible with the F minus, being HF is the weak acid. Let us go with HCl. HCl is a strong acid. When added to water, H3O plus and Cl minus, where the concentration of chloride will be extremely large. So it is the correct suitable answer. Chloride will give the higher Cl minus concentration, because within the reaction, chloride released in the maximum extent. Sorry. When HNO2 is treated with water, H3O plus and NO2 formation is possible, but This is a possible reaction, but starting material we are taking HNO2 called a nitrous acid, highly unstable. This reaction not at all favorable. So option number 4 is also not correct. Only the suitable answer is chloride. For question number 31, option number 3 is the correct answer. Let us move on to question number 32. The correct statement for direct current polarography is. So when DC polarography was considered, what is the correct statement we have to go with? E naught is concentration dependent. Let us see. E naught is particularly ion irrespective of other factors, temperature, concentration, and nature. So it is particular in ion. So E naught mainly depends upon the ionic nature, but not on the temperature, concentration, and the nature of electrode. So independent on all these factors. So concentration dependent is the wrong statement. Dropping mercury electrode is the macro electrode. It is not macro, it is the micro electrode, smaller one. So it is not at all considered as a macro electrode. It is a micro electrode. And moreover, this dropping mercury electrode most probably used in atomic emission spectroscopy, not in the DC polarography. And next is about limiting current is equal to diffusion current. Limiting current is maximum current. Rate of decomposition becomes equals to rate of diffusion. So this is also not a correct statement. Limiting current is not exactly equals to diffusion current. So only the correct option will be the last one, because that is only the probability we have. The large excess of supporting electrolyte eliminates the migration current. So whatever supporting electrolyte is there, that will reduce the migration current. Whatever migration current is generated, that will be removed or destroyed by the supporting electrolyte. This is the correct statement. Number 32, option number 4 is the correct answer. And the next question will be 33. Saturation factor in the neutron activation analysis is. What is the saturation factor we have to predict? A is called induced radioactivity. Pi is called a neutron flux. Sigma is effective nuclear cross section. N is number of target atoms what we are performing. Lambda is the decay constant. If these are given, our saturation factor mainly depends upon these factors only. Now, the suitable formula will be saturation factor of neutron activation analysis depends upon A by pi sigma n. What is the formula? A by pi sigma n. A denotes induced radioactivity. Pi is the neutron flux. Sigma is the effective nuclear cross section. N is the number of target atoms whichever participating in the reaction. That is provided in the option number 1. For question number 33, option number 1 is the correct answer. And the next question will be 34. The primary analytical method not used in reference. So whatever method which is not applicable, not applied with reference. If we are constructing any galvanic cell, any kind of cell, one will be the reference, another will be the unknown electrode will be there. So one reference electrode, another unknown electrode will be there. In that case, there is a possibility of potential difference. But one of the method where reference is not at all applicable. If you are going with spectral analysis, reference is not at all required. If you are taking NMR, TMS is the reference. If you are taking IR, UV, any kind of mechanism, we are applying double beam diffraction pattern. So that's the reason why in all the cases we are applying reference material. But in case of that primary analytical method where reference is not required, that is isotopic dilution mass spectroscopy. In isotopic dilution mass spectroscopy, we are not employing any reference material. So for question number 34, option 4 is the correct answer. Question number 35. The number of inorganic sulfur atoms present in the metalloprotein active site of ribrodoxin, 2 iron ferredoxin, 4 iron ferredoxin. So here, what these are the part of bio-inorganic chemistry, right? Here, how many inorganic sulfur atoms are there? Inorganic sulfurs are nothing but sulfur directly bounded to metal is regarded as the inorganic sulfur. Sulfur bounded to protein part is called organic sulfur. So inorganic sulfurs are labile in nature, organic sulfurs are inert in nature. So 3 different compounds, one is ribrodoxin, second is 2 iron ferredoxin, 4 iron ferredoxin compounds are given. In this, how many inorganic sulfurs are there? We have to predict. For that purpose, first compound is ribrodoxin. Ribrodoxin is iron with sulfur, sulfur, sulfur. How many sulfur linkages are there? 4 sulfur linkages, just looks like a tetrahedral nature, and each sulfur bounded to cysteine base. So here, sulfur being attached with cysteine base, all these 4 sulfurs are regarded as organic sulfur. How many organic sulfurs are there? 4 organic sulfurs. Then how many inorganic sulfurs? No inorganic sulfur is present, and bridging sulfur is also absent here. So in ribredoxim, there is no any inorganic sulfur within the molecule. Let us go with 2-iron ferredoxin. When 2-iron ferredoxin was taken, it is a kind of ferredoxin system. 2 iron metals will be bridged by 2 sulfur atoms, and another more 2 terminal sulfur atoms per each iron will be there. These terminal sulfurs bonded with cysteine protein, cytosine bases, and in between we have bridging sulfur atoms. These sulfurs are purely linked with metal and metal, right? That's why these two are considered as inorganic sulfur atoms. And these sulfurs, whichever binded with cytosine, these are regarded as organic, right? Organic are 4, inorganic are only 2. So here number of bridging sulfur atoms 2. So in iron ferredoxin, we have 2 inorganic sulfur atoms. And the last compound, 4-iron ferredoxin. When 4-iron ferredoxin was taken, 4 iron atoms will be present in this. So in this 4 iron atoms, so here, what is the distribution? Irons are located second, third, fourth corners, and 1, 2, 3, 4 sulfurs are there. They are purely linked with only metals. That's why these 1, 2, 3, 4 sulfurs, whichever present within the cube, are regarded as inorganic. And terminal sulfurs, whatever present, they are bonded with the proteins, right? That's why these 4 sulfurs are called organic. Inorganic sulfurs are 4, organic sulfurs are 4, and these sulfurs are bridging sulfurs atoms. That's the reason why in 4-iron ribredoxin, 4 inorganic sulfur atoms are present. So ribredoxin, if you are considering inorganic sulfur, there are 0, no direct metal linked bridging sulfur is there, so here 0. And second, 2-iron ferredoxin, we have 2, 4-iron ferredoxin, 4 are there. For question number 35, option number 1 is the correct answer. Let us move on to 36. The metal iodide with metallic luster and high electrical conductivity. Sodium iodide, cadmium iodide, lanthanum iodide, bismuth iodide, 4 compounds are given, among all which will give high luster, shiny surface, and high electrical conductivity. So specifically lanthanum compound having that nature, because lanthanum iodide when taken, there is a probability of lanthanum. What is the valency of lanthanum? It used to release 3 electrons. So lanthanum plus 3 and 3 electrons will be released. Iodine having tendency to accept only 2 electrons, right? So iodine only 1 electron short in that. So it will accept only 2 electrons. 2 iodines requires 2 electrons. So 2 I minus will be formed. More 1 electron will be there. That electron behaves like an ion. That electron behaves like an anion and regarded as electride. This electron is regarded as electride. Now the compound will be lanthanum plus 3, I minus taken twice, and E minus. So because of this electride formation, it induces the luster nature, shiny surface will be there, and a higher electrical conductivity, because free electrons are available within the compound. So here conductivity of these compounds are extremely large. So among all, lanthanum iodide having higher electrical conductivity and metallic luster. That is because of electride formation. For question number 36, option number 3 is the correct answer. Let us move on to 37. The correct order of bond dissociation energies for the indicated CH bonds in the following. One is benzene hydrogen. Second is cyclopropynyl hydrogen. Third is benzene, it is in contact with triple bond and terminal hydrogen is there, right? Here 3 different compounds, acetylenic hydrogen is there. 3 different compounds, then how can we depict bond dissociation energy? That purely depends upon its percentage of S character. S character for first hydrogen, what is